So just like absolute value equations, absolute value inequalities create two answers, all right? And these actually go along with the chapter a little bit more than what you would think. You could have an absolute value is less than a number, or you can have an absolute value is greater than a number. What happens here is, the first one's simple. If the absolute value of x is less than 3, then you would say, well, yeah, then x must be less than 3 to a certain point. That point is 0. After that, if I were to get out here and use -5, for example, this is not true, right? So once you cross over the 0, you have to flip your sign. So this actually creates two inequalities. The first one looks just like the one it gave you. What's inside is less than 3. But then you create this other inequality. What's inside is greater than -3. Because you go all the way to 0, and then all of a sudden you can't go past it. So anything less than -3 actually doesn't work for absolute value. The absolute value of something less than -3 is going to be bigger than 3, because you are now further away from 0 than 3. And it said that you're only 3 away from 0 at most, right? So when it's less than, you're going to create this in between two. You're going to create less than 3 and greater than -3 grouping, right? But what about greater than? Greater than does the opposite. Yes, your x's will be greater than or equal to 3, right? That is going to always be true. But you know what else is true? The inside of that could be less than or equal to -3, because it's saying you are farther away from 0 than 3. Well, -5 is farther away from 0 than 3 as well. +5 is farther away from 0 than 3. And so the less than creates two that look like this, and the greater than creates two that look like this. But the rule is the same. The first one is always the inside and whatever sign it gave you. The second one is always the inside, and you flip your greater than and you negate your answer. So you do two things on your second inequality. When you do these, you're going to do it exactly like your equations. Take what is inside, keep this exactly the way it is, keep this exactly the way it is. That is your first one, always. Your second one, you take the inside. Now you're going to flip this guy. It was less than or equal to. We're going to make him greater than or equal to. And we're going to make this the opposite. It was 10. We're going to make it -10. So your absolute values do exactly the same thing. What's inside, and you create two. You change your signs, positive and negative. But on these, you just flip your greater than, less than. And then you just solve them. We have a rather easy one to solve. Subtract 5 from both sides. We get x is less than or equal to 5. Subtract 5 from both sides. We get x is greater than or equal to -15. So create this little guy here. Now, I will say, when you have less than or equal to, it is an and. When you have greater than or equal to, it is an or. So I'm looking for where these cross, all right? X is less than or equal to 5. Close circle, because it's or equal to, and it's going to be everything this way, right? Greater than or equal to -15, and I went off, so we're just going to make -15 out here. Just because he went off. All right, so greater than, close circle. So this is actually going to be an and problem. It's everything in between them. All right, everything in between them. So you're setting up two. What's inside is less than. What's inside is greater than, the opposite. We're going to do one more example of these. One more example, and then we're done. Graph this. We're going to do exactly the same thing. What's inside? -3x plus 6. Exactly the way it gave it to me. Exactly the way it gave it to me. And then we're going to have what's inside. Flip this. Make this the opposite. And because it was a greater than, this is an or, so we just graph it. I'm dividing by what here? What do I need to do? Yeah, we're going to flip it. All right, same thing over here happens actually. I am dividing by a negative. All right, this is an or, so I just graph it. -4 open and less than, +8 open and greater than. And that is my answer. So these are literally just the same type. You're just creating two equations. What's inside equals the positive or negative. Inequalities, what's inside exactly the way it gave it to you, then flip and do the opposite.